Welcome back to After the Routine. I'm your host, Rachelle Provost, and today we're doing something a little bit different. We are doing a solo episode. There's no guest today. It is just me and my rambles, so buckle up. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to TTB Media and Consulting Inc. for sponsoring this episode. As a founding sponsor of After the Routine, TTB Media is helping us share stories that show athletes, parents, coaches, and industry professionals what is possible beyond the mats. Their support allows us to continue creating conversations that highlight leadership, career growth, mentorship, and opportunities in cheerleading, dance, and gymnastics. Okay, so today's episode is all about building a coaching career that you actually love and that you want to pursue. So maybe at this point you've applied to be a coach in training, you're a junior coach, or you're just starting out your coaching career. Then this episode is for you. Honestly, kudos to you because coaching has been such a positive and influential thing in my life. I did it when I was younger. I took a pause while I was in university. And it was something I came back to afterwards when I started working full time. And it is one of those things that genuinely brightens every part of my week. If I'm having a bad day, I go to the gym and I can just leave it there and go hang out with some awesome kiddos and be in an environment that I really enjoy and work on skills that I love teaching and I love doing. So being able to coach even like the youngest little ones all the way up to adults, you can have a career that you really enjoy and is so beneficial and have a really big impact on those around them. And like other things like the coaching, you're just building really important life skills. You're managing your time, you're communicating with athletes and parents, with gym owners and coworkers. You're really working on emotional regulation, whether that's you're helping an athlete or you yourself are having to emotionally regulate, because there's a lot of the time as a coach where you're like, okay, I just need to take a moment. I just need to breathe and then go from here. How to deal with conflict, whether that's athlete to athlete or a parent comes in raring to go and you need to like calm down and manage the situation and then go forward. And there's just so many life skills to count that like I could go on forever about them. But for so many people, coaching is a way, it's an outlet for them to stay connected to the sport even once they're done. And I think that starting young and starting as a CIT or a junior coach is incredible. It's also about knowing more than the sport or a specific skill, being able to be a good coach and an effective coach. It requires passion and you have to keep learning because the sport changes and drills change and different kids come through your class and you need to change how you do that. You need to learn patience. That's probably the biggest thing. And sometimes the hardest thing to learn is patience. Professionalism, both in a class setting with coworkers, with parents. You're also learning how to communicate with parents. And a lot of times we often think like, oh, it's the coach versus the parent. And, we're pushing against opposite sides when the reality is that the parent is just advocating for their child and they want the best for that. And as a coach, you want the best for their child. So working together is the best way for you to be able to do that. You also are creating a positive experience for athletes, whether that is that it's their first time ever being in a rec class and they're learning a new skill to they've been in the sport for years and now they're older and they're starting to look at what they want to do, and being able to coach all ranges of that is really important. So for this episode, we're going to break down the top 10 tips that I have and kind of that I've thought about over the last little bit for new coaches. So I personally love training and supervising CITs and junior coaches. I think the privilege of being able to help train and shape the next generation of coaches is something that I take really seriously. And I would say that the CITs and junior coaches that I work with are very much like in agreement. Like I want them to have the best experience. I want them to become the best coach. And how you approach training and supervising a CIT or a junior coach or even a younger coach really can make a difference on their love and experience with coaching. So number one, we're going to start with show your passion. So when you're in a class, athletes can tell when a coach is in it. And they can definitely tell when a coach is not in it. And that shows up in a lot of different ways. So it shows up in the energy that you show up, right? So if you're showing up and you're crossing your arms and you're like whatever, that's not very inviting. It's not very welcoming. And they're going to pick up on that. But it also comes through with how prepared you are for the class. So like, do you have a lesson plan? Do you know your games? Are you being consistent in your teaching? So the way that you teach a skill, the way that you talk to athletes, the way that you go through the stations and class after class, is the routine the same? Because kids love routine and being able to know what they're doing next. And also it shows up in the way that you care about your athletes and getting to know who they are as a human and not just as an athlete. And really just taking a moment and being like, hey, like, how was your day? I know you had a math test last week. How did it do? It also could be like, oh, you had your birthday party this weekend. What did you do? Right. And checking in and having that personal side. Number 2, so learn from other coaches. This can be like a really, really beneficial way to learn by looking at the coaches and reflecting on who shaped you as an athlete. So what were the things that you liked that they did? What were the things that you maybe didn't like that they did? You know, we're human. The reality is coaches are not going to get it right every time. Trainers are not going to get it right every time. So really looking at and saying like, okay, what lessons or skills helped you as an athlete that helped you when you're training and becoming a coach? And then use those as a foundation for your own coaching style. And so it'll take a little bit, right, to find your own coaching style. But when you do, look at it and think like, what kind of coach do I want to become? And then set your foundation for that. Okay, number 3, learn what you like and don't like about coaching. So there are some things of coaching that you're going to be great at and it's going to be easy. And there's other things that you're going to need to take time for. So looking at like what energizes you, what drains you, looking at ages and levels and environments, what feels the best to you. And now it's really important because I'm not saying to ignore those or to only focus on the things that you're good at. That allows you to identify the areas that you need work on, right? Because you could be asked to coach a tiny class at any point in time, or you could be asked to coach an advanced level 1 class. And so are you comfortable? And if you aren't comfortable, what are the things that you need to do to become more comfortable? Is that, you know, spending time shadowing a coach? Is that getting additional training? Is that working on yourself? So like knowing what to do with a 4-year-old versus a 12-year-old, because they're very different. Okay, number 4, take time to invest in yourself. You've invested in yourself as an athlete for so many years. You took the time to do the workouts and the conditioning. You did the drills and the skills, and you focused on how do I become a better teammate? All those same things apply when you start your coaching career. You have to invest in yourself. So thinking about what kind of training can I take? Where can I learn from? Who can I learn from? It really is an ongoing experience. Coaching doesn't stop when you get the job title. Actually, when you get the job title is when the learning starts ramping up from there, right? And knowing that being a coach is a very different experience than being an athlete, and that you have different expectations and you need to learn how to step into those roles. Whereas like you learned how to be an athlete, now you need to learn how to be a coach. And that can come from, like I said, learning from other coaches, but maybe it's we have access to social media, right? So learn from other professionals in the industry, go watch webinars, be open to learning new methods, new drills, different ways to approach safety, different ways to even approach how you teach a skill, because all of those are ways that you can kind of just like fill your bucket with knowledge and information that you can then go take and say like, okay, this is going to work with kid number 1. This is going to work with kid number 2. Okay. The 5th step is attend conferences if you can. This also applies to online webinars or staff training where you can get access to being able to go in and learn with other team members that are on your coaching staff, not your team, but really like conferences are an incredible place for learning. They take the industry best and they put them in one room for like 1 or 2 days. And it is a massive thing. And I always say, like, it's amazing that I get paid to go to learn cheerleading. And that's very much how I view conferences. It's those 2 days are my work. Those 2 days are my school. And I'm going to surround myself with as much information and people as I can. And I'm going to talk to people, right? I'm going to connect with people and then be able to get all this information on the current things that are happening in our industry so that I can take it back to my classes and teams. I can take it back to my athletes and I can show them. Okay. Number 6 is make it fun. So a lot of times, like when we think about fun, we're like, oh, it's just like there and we're like doing games or whatever. But fun does not mean a lack of structure. But fun also is important, especially if you're working with younger athletes, because that positive environment and that fun and engaging environment allows kids to stay engaged. They're going to want to do the drills if it's got a fun name to it. Or if, like, one of the things I always say is like a hollow body, you have to squish a Smartie under your back so like all the chocolate explodes and so that they're not arching and their ribs aren't up. But that's just like a fun little way that now when they get to that skill and they get to that station, they're thinking about, okay, I need to squish the Smartie. I need to flatten my back up against it. Or even in your stretching, right? Like making it fun. We talk about like stretching in our hands. And so why don't you interlock your fingers and then try to throw a snowball to the front to try and stretch that out? It's a great way for you to keep your class moving too. Because like when it's just like drill, 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 then you're about to lose a lot of athletes. Even when they're like elite level athletes, fun is still important. So like having them, how hard can you smack the mat in your swing for your back handspring? And you're doing skills and gamifying everything. So like, okay, you're going to do a back walkover and I need to make sure that your ears are hidden by your arms. And so in the middle of that back walkover, I'm going to hold up a number and I need you to tell me what it is. Right? Like it doesn't have to be difficult, but it does allow you to still make it fun and be like, oh, okay, like I got to pay attention to this. Number 7, remember their ages. This is one I know that can be really difficult for younger coaches, especially like CITs and junior coaches. You're so used to being coached as an elite level athlete. But a lot of times when we're learning how to coach, we're coaching recreational and younger age athletes. And so those athletes don't understand the terms that you're using. So break it down and then break it down even more. Make it simple and recognize that like what a 4-year-old understands is very different from a 10-year-old, which is very different from what a 15-year-old. So get to know what their age group maturity is. So like what can they do physically at that age? What are some limitations that they might have? Developmentally, where they're at emotionally. You might find that your 5-year-old gets like really overwhelmed and upset really quick. And you're like, I don't know how to fix this. Well, they're at that point where they're learning emotional regulation and we can help teach them those skills. And keeping that in mind, like young athletes, they're still developing emotionally, physically, like our tinies and like toddlers, their arms compared to the size of their head, like they have really big heads and these arms are really small. And so they're trying to like fight it. But there's fun things that you can do to help build those muscles so that as they're growing and they're developing into their body, they're helping develop that body awareness and shapes. It's also important to remember that with ages and skill levels, expectations should be challenging, but realistic. What you expect out of a rec athlete is definitely not the same that you expect out of a elite level 3 cheerleader who's been doing it for 10 years. So make sure that you're breaking it down, keeping it simple. And then when expectations come into play, can they do it? And what can you push them a little bit more to do and challenge them? Number 8 it's an important one that takes a bit to learn. So as a junior coach, as a CIT, as a younger coach, learn how to be a good employee. And that's not just for being a coach. That's learning a life skill that's going to take you for you on. So coaching is a professional role. You are dealing with teaching athletes skills. You're teaching children. You are working with parents. Those parents are trusting you to be able to teach those skills safely and in a way that is inviting and engaging. And you're working with other people. And so learning to be reliable. So you show up for your shifts. And if you aren't able to make a shift, you're letting them know well in advance, or you're getting your shift covered by another person. You're prepared. So you're coming in like your hair's up, your shoes are on quickly, you're in the right clothing, you're wearing your gym's branding. You know what the lesson plan is. You know what class you're coaching and what skills you're coaching. It also is learning how to communicate. So communicating with athletes in a professional way, communicating with parents, communicating with coworkers, and making sure that everyone is on the right track, communicating with gym owners, right? And letting them know, hey, I noticed an issue with this one athlete. I just wondering if you could check in with them. And then it's also being respectful. So being respectful to athletes, parents, coworkers, gym owners, the space. And so one big one is like cleaning up after your classes, being respectful and wearing the standard that your gym has set. So if it's a certain color pants, if it's the gym shirt, making sure that your hair is up, no jewelry on, those sort of things. And it's also important to remember that understanding professionalism now creates more opportunities for you down the road. Okay, we're getting to the end. Number 9 is learn the actual skill and art of coaching. So being good at the sport is great, but just because you're good at the sport doesn't necessarily mean you're a great coach or even a good coach. You have to learn how to coach. So that means learning how to teach skills at every level and every progression. It means learning how to lead a class from the beginning and like getting them all organized, getting them on the mats, going through the rules, warm up, stretch, setting up stations, explaining the stations, taking down the stations, and then doing conditioning and wrapping up and ending on a positive note for your classes. It's talking about like learning how to motivate. So being able to get an athlete that is like down on themselves back up into the class and like, yeah, okay, we're going to tackle this. We're going to do it together. You're able to do it. And then also supporting athletes. So like there's a lot of times where the gym is the one safe place that athlete has. So they come in and they've had a bad day and they just want to be there and they want to know that someone cares about them and they want to know that like someone recognized them. I once read a statistic that it was kids are happier and more engaged if they have 3 interactions with people outside their home a day. So that could be the front desk, that could be the coach, and it could be another coach that's in the gym. And literally you just saying like, hey, how was your day? Or like, hi, welcome. Like, can't wait to see what you do today. Or like, great job on that front roll. Those are all touch points that allow that athlete to say like, hey, I am recognized and I matter and I belong here. And that makes a massive difference in how long they stay in the sport and also just like how happy they are as a human. One of the things like to think about too is like the best coaches keep studying the sport and also the people that they help. So they're learning how to communicate better. They're learning how to lead classes better. Maybe it's teaching a drill, but it's important to remember that teaching the drills are just one part. There are so many other parts that we need to develop as coaches. Okay, we are at our last tip, which is number 10, learn as much as you can. So like stay curious, ask questions, watch other coaches, keep building up your knowledge and coaching skills, build those leadership skills, go to those conferences, anywhere that you can. Like there are so many books that you can read about leadership, about youth sports, about being an employee, about being just as a coach as a whole, not even in your sport or your discipline. Just like, how do we become a better leader? Learn as much as you can, take it all in, and then look through it and say like, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. Or like, this is fitting this situation, but maybe not this situation, right? And being able to critically think and say like, okay, this is the skill I'm going to use going into this situation is going to benefit you for so many years and in so many settings and in so many jobs beyond just coaching. So those are my top 10 tips to become a better coach and create a coaching career that you absolutely love and you want to do every single day. Part of it is that just remembering that building a strong foundation in coaching, it starts with the passion. but it gets better and you get better by education and learning, communicating, and being willing to keep learning the whole time. And I want to leave you with one last thing, and that is the goal as a coach is to not just create better athletes, but it's to become the kind of coach that leaves a lasting impression. So I hope that helps you today. If you are not following us on social media, make sure to go check us out at After the Routine Podcast. Subscribe so you get updates regularly, and we will see you next time for when we answer the question, what happens after the routine ends?